Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 339. Weekly we get together, we talk about recent gaming news. I'm as always your host, Stephen Brown, and tonight we have to talk about that John Carmack is out at Oculus, Chris Metzen's back in at Blizzard, and Henry Cavill might actually become the God Emperor. All of that and more, but first I want everyone here to know this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching here, Tuesday at 8 p.m. over at Twitch TV/GamePoints, or later at any myriad of video hosting platforms, be it YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc., feel free to join in the conversation with any questions, comments, concerns you might have. Just try to keep them germane to the topics on hand. Speaking of, let's go ahead and get right into the very first story here. John Carmack is leaving his time at Oculus behind. This here is a Facebook post from Carmack himself saying the following. I resigned from my position as an executive consultant for VR with Meta. My internal post to the company got leaked to the press, but that just results in them picking a few choice bits out of it. Here's the full post as the internal employees saw it. So before we get into his actual post, a little bit of background on this guy. John Carmack was one of the co-founders of id. He was essentially the tech guy behind id's earliest stuff, with John Romero being the designer. Carmack was like the tech guy. Now they both, of course, worked on everything there, but Carmack was what's the word I would like to use? I don't want to say the main programmer, because there's a lot of people working on it, but he is definitely one of the bigger brains in the industry when it comes to technology. So this is a big blow to Oculus to lose him. He was kind of on the way out to begin with, though. He's been with Oculus since 2013, but he really dialed back a lot of his involvement with the company around 2019 so he could focus on AI. And it seems that one of the reasons why he ended up leaving was so he could focus on a startup, King Technologies. But this message here, I don't want to necessarily throw shade at Oculus, but it does throw shade at Oculus. It's polite and it's concise, but he was clearly not happy with what was how the company is being run. Let's go ahead and read the article itself, or rather his post, so you can judge for yourself what I mean by that. This is the end of my decade in VR. By the way, starting off, that means he is not moving to another VR project. At least that's what I'm interpreting from this. It sounds like he is going to be going full in the AI development. Anyways, back to what he said. I have mixed feelings. Quest 2 is almost exactly what I wanted to see from the beginning. Mobile hardware, inside-out tracking, optional PC streaming, 4K-ish screen, cost-effective. Despite all the complaints I have about our software, millions of people are getting value out of it. We have a good product. It's successful, and successful products make the world a better place. It could have happened a bit faster and been going a bit better if different decisions have been made, but we built something pretty close to the right thing, capitalized, as in that is what he was looking for. Going on. The issue is our efficiency. Some will ask why I care how progress is happening so long as it's happening. If I'm trying to sway others, I would say that an org that has only known inefficiency is ill-prepared for inevitable competition and or belt tightening. But really, it's more personal pain of seeing the 5% GPU utilization number in production. I'm offended by it. He then edited in after the fact. I was being overly poetic here, as several people have missed the intention. As systems optimization person, I care deeply about efficiency. When you work hard at optimization for most of your life, seeing something that is grossly inefficient hurts your soul. I was likening observing our organization's performance to seeing a tragically low number on a profiling tool. Back to the original post. We have a ridiculous amount of people and resources, but we constantly self-sabotage and squander effort. There's no way to sugarcoat this. I think our organization is operating at half the effectiveness that would make me happy. Some may scoff and contend we are doing just fine, but others will laugh and say, huh, half, I'm at a quarter efficiency. And here is the crux why he is leaving and doing his own company. He cannot seem to handle the bureaucracy at Facebook. It's too many people stirring the pot. It's too big of a company. This is a man who came from id. Now, id is huge, but id did eventually get bought by Bethesda, which in turn got bought by Microsoft. So you start adding layer and layer of bureaucracy. I can see why someone who is obsessed with efficiency, at his own words essentially, not wanting to be part of a massive conglomerate. It moves too slowly for him, it seems. To be fair, I am reading a lot into this, but that seems to be the vibe that I'm getting from this. Back to Carmack's post. It's been a struggle for me. I have a voice at the highest levels here, so it feels like I should be able to move things, but I'm evidently not persuasive enough. A good fraction of the things I complain about eventually turn my way after a year or two passes and evidence piles up, but I've never been able to kill stupid things before they cause damage or set a direction and have a team actually stick to it. I think my influence at the margins have been positive, but has never been a prime mover. This was admittedly self-inflicted. I could have moved to Menlo Park after the Oculus acquisition and tried to wage battles of generations of leadership, but I was busy programming and I assumed I would hate it, be bad at it, and probably lose anyways. Enough complaining. I worry of the fight and have my own startup to run, but the fight is still winnable. VR can bring the most of the people in the world, and no company is better positioned to do it than Meta. Maybe it's actually possible to get there by just plowing ahead with current practices, but there's plenty of room for improvement. Make better decisions and fill your products with give a damn. That last bit seems like the most damning part of it all. How I read into this, his actual intention or your interpretation may vary, is that Facebook is doing a good job with Oculus, but they seem more interested in just making something to sell rather than establishing a legacy. There seems to be a lot of good enough is good enough, whereas Carmack, being essentially a perfectionist, demands they go farther because he knows they can go farther. He knows they can do better, while Facebook just goes, we're making money, who cares? And for a man like Carmack, who clearly has a vision and a dream and a way he wants to go without being impeded, that's just unacceptable. And I get it. That's what I am reading into all of this. Whether or not that's actually what he means, that I don't know. But that's just the vibe I'm getting from this. It is, in my opinion, a huge blow to Oculus. I do think they're going to start stagnating from this. It sounds like Carmack straight up said there's no way that this company is going to be fighting off the inevitable competition that will come. They're top dog right now, but they might not be in 5 or 10 years from now. And overall, it just seems like Carmack is out of VR to begin with. As I said earlier, he seems to be focusing more on AI. So who knows what the future is going to bring. Carmack is still relatively young, by the way. He is not retiring. So if you have an interest in new technology and the bigger mover and shakers in this industry as a whole, he is definitely one of those people you still need to be watching. Speaking of big movers and shakers in the industry, let's go ahead and move on to this next post here. And a tweet from John Haidt, Senior Vice President and GM of the Warcraft franchise. He posted the following a couple days ago. It is with great joy that I announce Chris Metzen has joined the Warcraft leadership team as creative advisor. Chris's focus initially will be on World of Warcraft, and then his work will expand to other projects across the growing franchise. Chris was one of the original team members working on the Warcraft universe back when it began in 1994, and we are happy to be reuniting with him in the world he helped create. For those of you who don't know who Chris Metzen is, he started at Blizzard in 94, it says, but he is essentially one of the big lore people behind not just Warcraft, but StarCraft and Diablo as well. He's also the voice of Thrall, and I believe Vol'jin, and a bunch of other minor characters throughout the franchise. I think he was like the battlecruiser guy from StarCraft, and just things like that. He's been with the company for a very, very long time. He did retire in 2016 so he can spend time with his family, but now he is coming back as a creative advisor. Another one of those people that retired relatively young and then probably, in my opinion, maybe just got bored and went, I need to do something. Also, World of Warcraft is, Blizzard in general, let's be real here, but specifically Warcraft is on a decline. It was overtaken by Final Fantasy XIV, I believe, as the world's biggest MMO when it comes to pure subscriber base. And people have just been happy with World of Warcraft for quite a while now. They really seem to be just unable to capture the zeitgeist they used to have, that big passion. It used to be an event when a Warcraft expansion came out. Even people who didn't play World of Warcraft knew that expansion was coming. Now, just people shrug their shoulders at it. And that's not to say the myriad of other issues that have been going on with Blizzard the past few years. And that's not even counting the Activision Microsoft buyout that we got going on somewhere else too. it really does feel like they're trying to bring Metzen back in, and maybe some more of the old guard who have long since left Blizzard. Blizzard's really facing a Ship of Theseus style problem where all the people that made Blizzard just don't work there anymore. Same thing with BioWare, for example, if you want another example of a studio that was once beloved and has since fallen on hard times. Chris Metzen coming back feels like a desperation move, in my opinion. Also, keep in mind, he is showing up as a creative advisor, not as a producer, not as a director, not as that like head lore poobah or whatever title you want to throw in here, but as an advisor. That could be any number of things. It could be a full-time position where he's in the office 40, 50, 60 hours a week, grinding away at whatever the next World of Warcraft or StarCraft or Diablo focus is going to be. It does say he's going to be expanding to across this growing franchise or other projects across this growing franchise. So other Warcraft things out there. It could also mean that he's just sitting in one meeting a month saying, no, don't do that. Yes, do this. The scope, the scale of his position is unknown. And it really could just be there to garner some positive PR. Kind of like when Warhammer 40k Darktide mentioned that Dan Abnett was working on the plot to the Darktide story, of which maybe there's 3 pages of too. Just because someone is working on a story doesn't necessarily mean that they've contributed in any meaningful way. And I do feel that this is also meant to be more of a PR move than Metzen actually returning full-time to Blizzard, because I just don't see it. We'll see, though, as time goes on. Good to have you there, by the way. Awesome to have people in chat. Moving on to the next story. Speaking of Warhammer, this is via Fox News, a site we don't use all that often. By the way, the link to this story and everything else we cover will be provided in the description down below or over on our Discord server if you want to come take a look at that and join the community down there. From Fox News, Henry Cavill set to star and executive produce new Warhammer 40,000 series for Amazon. Not necessarily game related as far as this show goes, but there have been a lot of 40k games out there, and I definitely a fan of the universe, and I'm looking forward to what might be happening here. We'll get into it in a second. Henry Cavill has reportedly landed another new franchise, and he already loves it. Cavill, who famously donned the red cape and brought Superman to life on the big screen, and then helmed Netflix's The Witcher franchise as Geralt of Rivia, will now star and produce in an Amazon-led adaptation for Warhammer 40,000, according to the report. On Friday, Amazon confirmed it was in final negotiations and acquired rights from Games Workshop to produce a series based on the popular science fiction, tabletop, and video game franchise. Warhammer 40,000 has captured the imagination of fans of all ages from all walks of life and all over the world, said Jennifer Suck, head of Amazon and MGM Studios. Yeah, well, never mind. I was going to get into something, but we don't have to worry about it. In a statement to Fox News Digital, we're excited to work with Henry, Vertigo Entertainment, and Games Workshop across our Amazon entertainment businesses on this brilliant, immersive franchise for our global customers to experience for years to come. Cavill, a self-described nerd who takes pride in building computers by hand, already enjoys the Warhammer franchise and has publicly shared that one of his hobbies includes purchasing Warhammer characters' pieces and then painting them by hand. I have loved Warhammer since I was a boy, and making this moment truly special for me. The opportunity to shepherd the cinematic universe from its inception is quite the honor and the responsibility, Cavill said in a statement to Fox News. I couldn't be more grateful for all the hard work put in by Vertigo, Amazon Studios, and Games Workshop to make this happen. One step closer to making a nigh-on-life dream come true. And he does mean that, by the way. He says that Cavill's been engaging with this, with Warhammer since he was about 10. If you look at his social media pages, you can see him painting Adeptus Astartes army. He is a nerd through and through, and he loves Warhammer. He's talked about it all the time. He's probably the most high-profile celebrity to actually mention Warhammer in any positive light, which is one of the reasons why I'm somewhat excited that he's attached to this, because it really helps when you have people involved with the project know what the lore is. That's why, in my opinion, he made such a good Geralt of Rivia, because he knew the Witcher lore inside and out. He knew what that character was supposed to be. And if some rumors are to be believed, one of the reasons why he is leaving The Witcher is because he was having disagreements from the producers of The Witcher in how the character of Geralt should evolve in upcoming seasons. That is a rumor. I don't have anything necessarily to base that on other than he said, she said. But that's one of the reasons why he might have been out. Also, the Superman thing, which seems to have fallen through at the last second when James Gunn stepped in to kind of take control of the DC movie universe there. But that's another story entirely. For years, Warhammer fans have been portraying Cavill as the Emperor of Mankind, who was one of the central figures to 40k, albeit a silent one because he's long dead. However, I don't think that's who he would play. To have a proper 40k TV show, in my opinion, you need to keep it as a human story. 40k, its universe, is full of demonic threats, super strong alien nightmares, space elves, for lack of a better term, and genetic monstrosities that no one can actually relate to. However, there are a few factions that do work. There's the Imperial Guard, which are essentially just you and me given a gun told to go fight horrors. But I think that the role that Henry Cavill would be best suited for is an Inquisitor. And the reason why I think that might be what this is going to turn into is because Games Workshop has teased for a couple of years now that they are going to be making an Inquisitor Eisenhorn TV show. Now, Games Workshop has had their lackluster fare over on their Warhammer Plus channel with their animation and little mini TV series efforts. Not live action, but animated stuff to varying degrees of success. However, when you have Amazon money behind it, and Amazon has produced some good stuff, let's not take a look at Rings of Power. Let's focus on something a little bit better. The Expanse. An excellent show that was able to come up to a natural conclusion. I know the books go on, but let's say that aside. I would love to see Henry Cavill as Inquisitor Eisenhorn in a 40k TV show about that, because that lets you get access into a myriad of reasons why the Inquisitorial retinue might be showing up to a planet, and it'll introduce a whole bunch of different threats rather than just one singular one. You can actually use it as a nice stepping stone into the universe as a whole. Take a look at chat here. You're not that knowledgeable of Warhammer 40k. What is an Inquisitor? Okay, so an Inquisitor is just what it sounds like. It is someone who works on behalf of the Imperium, who goes around and ferrets out plots. Be they a cult of demon worshippers trying to summon a demon into a giant city, or someone that might be working with the evil version of the space elves to kidnap some people, or someone that might be trying to overthrow a planetary governor. They are an Inquisitor. They find the truth no matter what. They are a very grim and violent group of people, typically, because when you think Inquisitor, think like Spanish Inquisition dialed up to 11 is traditionally how they're portrayed. Although there have been some books that show them a little bit more human, a little bit more understanding, which is why I think the Eisenhorn idea, who is an Inquisitor that has his own series of books, that's why I think that might be what they're leaning toward. And I can see Henry Cavill here as Inquisitor Eisenhorn. Yeah, Secret Police plus Spanish Inquisition. Yeah, it's a good way of saying them. Good way of saying it. They are the last line of defense for humanity in many, many cases. I have high hopes for this because not only is he starring it, not only do you have someone who is well versed in the lore starring it, so you can bring that knowledge to the role, but he's also producing it, which probably would have been one of his conditions. The only hope that I have, though, and I'm hoping they stay with this, is that it is a hard M-rated show. Because the Warhammer 40k universe is, or even the fantasy one, is not a happy place. It is dark. It is oppressive. It is humanity living under the most totalitarian regime imaginable, and that is the best of the options out there. It is just bleak. And I know that 40k has been trying to become a little bit more family friendly as things have gone on. They're sidelining a few factions that might be a little more suggestive than they like. But hopefully, this brings that grittiness. This brings that darkness. This brings that feeling that everything is constantly on the verge of collapse. But there are sparks of hope there still, which I know is weird to say with the 40K universe, but some of their stories do have a hope of not necessarily doing better, but not getting wiped out either, or not falling to corruption. And this story needs that, I think. We'll see. I'm just now pontificating at this point. Take a look at chat again here. It started with literally thinking, what's the literal worst possible universe? Yeah, that's kind of the idea behind 40K. What is a far future setting that we're that has the worst possible outcome for mankind? Yeah, here it is. Yeah, and where the good guys are the good guys because the other bad guys are just way more ludicrously evil. Even the good guys in 40K are just fucked up anyways. Let me know what you think about this potential series down at the bottom, though. I'm glad that he's executive producing it as well, so that way maybe he can kind of keep things on track and rather than going off the rails in some other direction. That said, Amazon does have a spotty track record, so we'll see. As does 40K in general. 40K is not, Games Workshop is not the most selective in who gets their, excuse me, I'm hiccuping, who gets their licenses. They've had some good games, they've had some real shit games. They've had some good stories, they've had some real bad stories. We'll see. I do expect this to take like 2 or 3 years before we see anything on it, however. Moving on to a few other stories. Jeff Keighley here, talking about the Game Awards. Apparently this was the most viewed one yet. The one that happened a few weeks back. They had 103 million live streams of this show going on at the same time. That's kind of impressive when you look at the previous years tapping out around 85 million. The Game Awards is continuing to grow every year. Awesome. Congrats, Keighley. You work hard every year to make this show happen. I have an idea of how hard it takes to fire off something this massive. And it's not an easy undertaking. So well-deserved thanks. And I do think that this is one of those things that consistently does get better every year. Good point there, chat, by the way, if you're watching here live at Twitch TV/GamePoints, they're bringing up the fact that, yes, Steam Decks. The Steam Deck promo giveaway, I'm sure, did contribute to this. Because if you look at last year's number, it was 85 million. The year before that was like 83. So there had to have been something that really made it jump up 20 million viewers from year to year, when the previous year to year behind that was only a couple million. There's a good chance it was at Steam Decks. Apparently that was also one of the most viewed live streams, was watching it on Steam, because everyone was trying to win them Steam Decks. A couple more stories here. This is one of the ones that I bring up every now and then because, well, whenever Tencent does something, I feel it's important to mention it. This is via Gamatsu. Tencent acquires 20% stake in Shift Up. Chinese conglomerate Tencent has acquired a 20% stake in Shift Up, the Korean studio behind mobile games Destiny Child and Gods of Victory Nikkei, as well as the upcoming PlayStation 5 title Stellar Blade. After the stock acquisition, Tencent's the second largest shareholder after Shift Up founder Kim Hui-tae. Huang, I know I'm mispronouncing that name, forgive me. Tencent's subsidiary Level Infinite is already a global publisher of science fiction RPG shooter Goddess of Victory Nikkei, which launched for the iOS via the App Store and Android via Google Play on November 4th. Stellar Blade, a post-apocalyptic action game published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, is due out on PlayStation 5 in 2023 worldwide. It has been a while since we've heard of any Tencent acquisitions, and I do chalk that up to the fact that the global market is currently unstable as hell and, in my opinion, facing a massive depression. But there are still rooms for them to grow, and this seems to be one of those cases. They already appear to have a previous working relationship with Shift Up, so it makes sense they'll buy a little bit more into the company. I wouldn't be surprised if this is yet another developer that just gets completely gobbled up. We'll see. And as always, it would be remiss not to mention that you are right to fear Tencent, and you should be wary of anything that has their name on it, including things that try to use a different name like Level Infinite to hide the fact that they're actually Tencent. Be aware of the tricks that are pulled when it comes to that. One final story, bit of an odd one. Give me 1 second to mute my microphone here. Sorry about that. This is via an Amazon Games news press release, whatever the hell you want to call them. Amazon Games and Crystal Dynamics strike deal to develop and publish next major entry in the iconic Tomb Raider series. Weird. This seems so weird to me that it's not that weird that Crystal Dynamics found a publisher. It's weird that it's Amazon Games. Amazon keeps trying to dip its toe into gaming. They keep throwing money at the wall to see what sticks, and nothing really seems to hit too well. They had that one game that was canceled out underneath them. There's New World, which seems to not be doing too well. For a company as big as Amazon, they seem to be really, really struggling to get into games. This seems to be a different step for them, and yet another blunderbuss at trying to see what might hit. They might just go and become a publisher. And Amazon is definitely big enough to turn into an EA or an Activision if they throw enough money at it. They just need to make sure that it's a proven concept before they lean into it. Going to the actual press release itself. Amazon Games and Crystal Dynamics today announced that they have reached an agreement under which Crystal Dynamics will develop a new multi-platform Tomb Raider title, with Amazon Games providing full support and publishing the game globally. The as-yet untitled new Tomb Raider game is a single-player, narrative-driven adventure that continues Lara Croft's storyline in the Tomb Raider series. No idea if it's going to be picking up from like the Rise, Shadow, the newer Tomb Raiders, or if it's going to continue after the early PlayStation 1 Tomb Raiders, or if it's just going to be something completely different to begin with. There were story bits that were leaked. I think it was Sacred Symbols that had like the casting, like a bit of dialogue between two characters released to them early, and they got copyright striked or copyright claimed from Crystal Dynamics over. Maybe it was Square that did it. Don't remember which. Oh, that's another reason why this is weird. I believe Crystal Dynamics is currently owned by Embracer now, but Amazon is publishing them, and they were owned by Square. It's a really weird dynamic going on here, and I need to look a little bit more into it, but it just feels odd. Anyways, enough prattling. Back to the article. It includes the elements that have made the Tomb Raider one of the most revered franchises in gaming, giving players control and confidence. Sorry, let me read that again. It includes all the elements that have made Tomb Raider one of the most revered franchises in gaming, giving players control of the confident, multidimensional hero Lara Croft. What a weird sentence. Confident and multi-dimensional hero Lara Croft. What a weird sentence. In an environment that rewards exploration and creative pathfinding, with mind-bending puzzles to solve and a wide variety of enemies to face and overcome. Crystal Dynamics has drawn on the power of the cutting-edge technology of Unreal Engine 5 to take story to the next level, in the biggest, most expansive Tomb Raider game to date. The title is currently in early development, and additional details will be announced at a later date. Cool. I liked the reboot trilogy that came out a few years back. I thought all three of them were pretty solid games. I do think that the second one is the best of those three, with the third one, which I think is Shadow of the Tomb Raider, not necessarily being all that great, but they're all fine. Definitely worth it if you can get them for less than $20. Looking forward to seeing whatever else Crystal Dynamics can do with this franchise. We'll see. I'm sure that we will get more details on it in about a year or two. That does it for news. I have one upcoming event that I want to mention real quick. The Devolver Digital Public Access Holiday Special, coming on December 22nd. I do choose to see that more as a threat rather than a release date, by the way. Join Mr. Meatless, Santa, and other surprise guests as they share new looks and details on Cult of the Lamb, Stick It to the Stickmen, Terra Nil, Angerfoot, and Skate Story in this very normal and completely sane holiday special. If you've seen Devolver's E3 press conferences, you probably have an idea of what you're going to get here. I'm not joking when I say I see this as a threat as opposed to a release date. They tend to be nuts. Tune in at your own peril. That does it for that, and we have one new release out this week, by the way. It's nothing major. It's essentially Valkyrie Profile Lenneth on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. This is the PSP port of the venerable PlayStation 1 RPG that came out years ago. This is essentially the digital version of the PSP version coming out to PS4 and PS5. If you bought Valkyrie Elysium, I believe if you bought one of the bigger special editions, this game should be free. It should have come out the day that game came out, but then it got delayed for reasons. Valkyrie Elysium has mixed reviews right now, though, so I don't know if you necessarily want to pick that up. However, if you are a fan of Valkyrie Profile, you might want to take a look at that and then play the original one back, or the original one, rather, when it comes out later this week. Word of warning. If you want the best ending to Valkyrie Profile Lenneth, you're going to need a strategy guide. It is very unlikely for just someone to stumble in how the game is going to end on their first playthrough blindly. Just leave it at that. Anyways, that does it for new releases because nothing's really coming out this week because it's a holiday weekend. Go home, go enjoy some time with your family and friends, or just have a nice, lovely day in relaxing, hopefully. To those of you that work retail, best of luck. I hope you're getting paid a lot of overtime, and I hope that you are able to at least rest after the holidays. This has been GamePoints episode 339, and thank you all for showing up. I will be back next week with the end of the year wrapping up. Might do like the best and worst moments of 2022 in gaming, etc. We don't usually do the best games. Everyone does best games. I like to think on more of the moments. If you like what you saw here and you want to support the stream, you know what to do. Likes, bits, follow, subs, all that good stuff. You can follow myself at CapitalistPig21 there on the Twitter. And you can join a Discord server link provided down there, where I also link all of our stories that we talked about today as well. We do stream every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at twitch.tv/GamePoints, and I hope to see you all then, like I see so many of you. But until next week, y'all stay safe, take care, and I'm out of here.